All right. It only lets me do it for 5 minutes unless I pay $30. So these are all going to be 5 minute clips. Someone told me he was an Oxford man. A dim background started to take shape behind him, but at her next remark, it faded away. However, I don't believe it. Well, why not? "No, I don't know," she insisted. "I just don't think he went there." Something in her tone reminded me of the other girl's comment. Sorry for moving this around. "I think he killed a man," and had the effect of stimulating my curiosity. I would have accepted without question the information that Gatsby sprang from the swamps of Louisiana or from the Lower East Side of New York. That was comprehensible. But young men didn't, at least in my provincial inexperience, I believe they didn't, drift coolly out of nowhere and buy a palace on Long Island Sound. Anyhow, he gives large parties, said Jordan, changing the subject with an urban distaste for the concrete. And I like large parties. I like this quote. "I like large parties. They're so intimate. At small parties, there isn't any privacy." Interesting. There was the boom of a bass drum, and the voice of an orchestra leader rang out suddenly above the echolalia of the garden. "Ladies and gentlemen," he cried at the request of Mr. Gatsby, "we're going to play for you Mr. Vladimir Tolstoy's latest work, which attracted so much attention at Carnegie Hall last May. If you read the papers, you know there was a big sensation." And he smiled with jovial condescension and added, "Some sensation," whereupon everybody laughed. "The piece is known," he concluded lustily, "as Vladimir Tolstoy's Jazz History of the World." Can look that one up. The nature of Mr. Tolstoy's composition eluded me because just as it began, my eyes fell on Gatsby, standing alone on the marble steps and looking from one group to another with approving eyes. Just going to throw out there again, my annotating, just because I can only make 5 minute videos and I'm kind of going quick, is not to the depth that I'm sure you are. I hope you're pausing much more than I am. His tan skin was drawn attractively tight on his face, and his short hair looked as though it were trimmed every day. I could see nothing sinister about him. I wondered if the fact that he was not drinking helped to set him off from his guest. That's interesting. Gatsby's not drinking. For it seemed to me that he grew more correct as the fraternal hilarity increased, like a frickin' fraternity party out there. When the Jazz History of the World was over, girls were putting their heads on men's shoulders in a puppyish, convivial way. Girls were swooning backward playfully into men's arms, even into groups, knowing that someone would arrest their falls. But no one swooned backward on Gatsby, and no French bob touched Gatsby's shoulder, and no singing quartets were formed with Gatsby's head for one link. Oh, incredible writing. "I beg your pardon." Gatsby's butler was suddenly standing beside us. "Miss Baker?" he inquired. "I beg your pardon, but Mr. Gatsby would like to speak to you alone." "Uh-oh. With me?" she exclaimed in surprise. "Yes, madame." She got up slowly, raising her eyebrows at me in astonishment, and followed the butler towards the house. "So Gatsby wants to talk to Jordan about something privately." I noticed that she wore her evening dress, all her dresses, like sports clothes. There was a jauntiness about her movements, as if she had first learned to walk upon golf courses on clean, crisp mornings. The the description from Fitzgerald, I just think, is masterful. I was alone, and it was almost 2 a.m. For some time, confused and intriguing sounds had issued from a long, many-windowed room which overhung the terrace. Eluding Jordan's undergraduate, the guy that was hanging out with her, who was now engaged in obstetrical conversation with two chorus girls, and who implored me to join him, I went inside. The large room was full of people. One of the girls in yellow was playing the piano, and beside her stood a tall, red-haired young lady from a famous chorus engaged in song. She had drunk a quantity of champagne, and during the course of her song, she had decided ineptly that everything was very, very sad. She was not only singing, she was weeping too. I always find this part kind of funny for some reason. Whenever there was a pause in the song, she filled it with gasping, broken sobs, and then took up the lyric again in a quavering soprano. The tears coursed down her cheeks, not freely, however, for when they came into contact with her heavily beaded eyelashes, they assumed an inky color and pursued the rest of their way in slow black rivulets. A humorous suggestion was made that she sing the notes on her face because it's dripping down and then it's pooling up, and that looks a little bit like a musical note. Whereupon she threw up her hands, sank into a chair, and went off into a deep, I don't know that word, we should look that one up, sleep. She had a fight with a man who says